Please, I don't want this marriage anymore. Please, let me go. I love Chidi. Please, I don't want this marriage.
It had been 6 months since she ran from Ekong. 6 months since she left behind the suffocating marriage that drained her soul. 6 months since she stopped being a prisoner in her own home. Now she had a new life, a simple one, but hers. She worked at Chidi's Boutique, a well-known clothing store in the city. The owner, Chidi Nwosu, was a successful businessman in his late 30s, known for his style and charm. The first time Amara met him, she had expected another arrogant, rich man. But he was nothing like Ekong. Chidi was kind, patient, gentle in a way that made her wary at first, but eventually she let her guard down. "Morning, Amara." His deep voice broke her thoughts. She turned to see him standing near the register, dressed in a crisp white shirt and fitted navy trousers. He was effortlessly handsome, with deep brown skin, well-groomed facial hair, and eyes that always seemed to be studying her, even when he wasn't looking directly. "Good morning, sir," she replied with a small smile. He chuckled. "Haven't I told you to call me Chidi?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Good morning, Chidi." His smile widened. Chidi had been nothing but good to her since she started working here. She had been hesitant about getting close to anyone, but he had a way of making her feel seen without pressuring her. Whenever he noticed she was deep in thought, he would crack a joke or tell a ridiculous story about a spoiled customer. Like now. "You know, I had a dream last night," he said, crossing his arms. "In it, you finally smiled at me like I wasn't just your boss." Amara rolled her eyes, but couldn't stop the small laugh that escaped her lips. "There it is," Chidi clapped. "My day is made." She shook her head, turning away so he wouldn't see the heat rising to her cheeks. Was he flirting with her? She wasn't sure. And even if he was, she wasn't ready for anything beyond friendship. Or at least, that's what she told herself. Days turned into weeks, and Amara found herself growing more comfortable around Chidi. He was different from Ekong in every way. Where Ekong had been demanding, Chidi was patient. Where Ekong had controlled her, Chidi respected her space. One day, after closing up the boutique, he offered to drive her home. "Not as your boss," he had said, leaning casually against his sleek black SUV. "As a friend who doesn't like the idea of you taking a taxi this late." She had hesitated, then accepted. It became a habit. After work, he would drive her home, and they would sit in the car talking for hours. She told him about her love for painting, how she had once dreamed of being an artist before life crushed that dream. He listened, genuinely interested, and then one day, he surprised her. "You should paint again," he said, handing her a wrapped box. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a set of professional paintbrushes and a canvas. Her throat tightened. "Chidi, this is too much." "It's not," he said softly. "It's just a gift for a friend." But the way his eyes held hers told her it was more than that. Falling. It wasn't one big moment that made Amara realize she was falling for Chidi. It was the small things. The way he always checked on her. The way he remembered little details. How she liked her coffee, how she hated loud noises, how she always touched the pendant on her necklace when she was nervous. He didn't rush her or demand anything from her. And that was what made her heart open. One evening, after a long day at work, he took her out for dinner. It wasn't a grand, expensive date, just a small, cozy restaurant where they sat in a quiet corner, eating grilled fish and sipping fresh juice. "Are you happy here, Amara?" he asked, watching her carefully. She hesitated, then nodded. "I think I am." "Good," he said, reaching across the table to brush his fingers against hers. She didn't pull away. Days passed, then weeks, and Chidi became more than just her boss. He spoiled her, sending her flowers, buying her thoughtful gifts, taking her out on the weekends. He called her his queen, making her feel like the most precious woman in the world. For the first time in forever, she felt loved, cherished, safe. She let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this happiness. But she had no idea that her past wasn't about to come crashing back, because Ekong was watching. Amara woke up feeling lighter than she had in years. The morning sun peeked through her curtains, casting warm streaks of light on her small apartment floor. She stretched, her lips curving into a soft smile. For the first time in a long time, she was happy. Chidi had dropped her off late the night before, after another perfect evening together. They had gone out for suya and cold drinks, laughing about silly things, and then he had kissed her forehead before driving off. A simple moment, but it meant everything. She reached for her phone, expecting a good morning text from him. But what she saw instead made her blood run cold. A message from an unknown number. "You look happy. Enjoy it while it lasts." Amara's heart stopped. Her fingers tightened around the phone as fear crawled up her spine. It couldn't be. She forced herself to breathe. Maybe it was just a random message. Maybe it wasn't him. But deep down, she knew. Enkay was back. At work, Amara tried to push the message out of her mind, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that settled in her chest. As she arranged new dresses in the boutique, Chidi came up behind her, gently placing a warm hand on her lower back. "You okay?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Of course, why?" He studied her face. "You seem off." "I'm fine," she lied, turning back to the clothes. She didn't want to tell him. She didn't want to drag her past into this new life. But the signs wouldn't stop. That evening, as she left the boutique, she saw a black car parked across the street. It wasn't moving, but she could feel eyes watching her. She forced herself to walk casually, but her hands trembled as she unlocked her front door. She barely slept that night. A few days later, Chidi invited her over for dinner at his house. It was a warm, cozy evening with soft music playing in the background as they ate. "I could get used to this," Chidi said, reaching across the table to hold her hand. Amara smiled. "Me too." But just as she was about to take a sip of her wine, Chidi's phone buzzed. A message. She watched as he read it. His expression changed instantly. The warmth in his eyes disappeared, replaced by something unreadable. "Chidi?" she asked, her heart thudding. "What's wrong?" Slowly, he turned the phone toward her. Amara's stomach dropped. It was a picture of her. Not just any picture. A picture of her and Enkay on their wedding night, dressed in their wedding attire, locked in an embrace. The message below it sent a chill down her spine. "Your woman used to be mine. Here's proof." She felt sick. Chidi's grip on the phone tightened. "Who sent this?" I don't know," she stammered, her breath shallow. "Amara," Chidi said carefully, his voice sharp. "Who is this man?" She swallowed hard. There was no hiding anymore. Amara took a deep breath and told Chidi everything. She told him about Enkay, about the arranged marriage, the abuse, the escape, how she had run for her life, hoping never to be found. By the time she finished, Chidi was silent, his jaw clenched. "You should have told me," he said finally. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid you'd leave if you knew the truth." He exhaled, rubbing his face. "I need to think." Her stomach twisted. "Chidi, please." He shook his head. "Not now, Amara. I need time." He stood and walked toward the balcony, leaving her sitting alone at the table. For the first time in months, fear wrapped its hands around her throat again, because she knew this was only the beginning. Enkay was coming for her, and he wouldn't stop until he destroyed everything. Chidi didn't call the next morning, or the day after. Amara told herself to be patient, that he just needed time. But deep down, she felt it, the shift. Something had cracked between them, something fragile that Enkay had reached into and twisted. For 2 days she woke up, reached for her phone, and found nothing. No texts, no missed calls. Her heart ached, but she understood. She had dropped a bombshell on him, and Enkay was making sure it exploded. Then on the third night, her phone buzzed. "Chidi." She answered immediately. "Chidi?" A long pause, then, "Come over." That was it. No warmth, no teasing like before, just those 2 words. And she knew this wasn't going to be good. When Amara arrived at Chidi's house, she immediately noticed the tension in his body. He sat on the couch, his back stiff, his hands clenched into fists on his lap. On the table in front of him was a stack of photos. Her stomach turned. Slowly, she walked over, picked up the top one, and her breath caught. It was her, lying in bed, asleep, taken from Enkay's phone. She flipped through them, each one worse than the last. Private moments, intimate pictures, things only a husband should have seen. Her hands shook. "He sent these to you," she whispered. Chidi nodded. Every morning for the past 3 days. Her throat tightened. Chidi, he's in your past, right? Chidi's voice was low, but there was something dangerous in it. Then why does he still have this much power over you? She looked up at him, her eyes pleading. I didn't know he would do this. I thought I was free. Chidi ran a hand over his face, exhaling sharply. Amara, I love you, but how do I deal with this? Every time I close my eyes, I see you with him. In his bed. In his arms. Tears burned in her eyes. That wasn't love, Chidi. That was survival. His jaw tightened. I know. But it doesn't change the fact that he's still here, still inside this relationship. She reached for him, but he pulled back. And that hurt more than anything. The messages didn't stop. Every day Chidi received something new, a new picture, a recording, a memory of Amara's past with Enkay. Enkay never directly reached out to her. He didn't need to. He was attacking her through Chidi, slowly ripping apart the happiness she had found. One evening, Chidi came home angry. He called me today, he said, throwing his phone onto the couch. Amara stiffened. What? He said, I'm playing with another man's wife, that I'll never be enough for you, that you'll always belong to him. Amara's heart pounded. And you believe him? Chidi turned to her, his face twisted with frustration. Of course not. But Amara, you have to see this from my side. Every single day, I wake up to another part of your past with him, and no matter how much I love you, I can't erase it from my mind. She swallowed hard. So what are you saying? He shook his head. I don't know. And that was when she knew. Enkay was winning. A week later, Amara showed up at Chidi's boutique after work, hoping to talk things through. But the moment she walked in, she felt it. Something was different. Chidi was at the counter, speaking to one of the workers. When his eyes landed on her, something cold passed through them. Her stomach clenched. Chidi, she started. Can we talk? He sighed, rubbing his temples. Amara, I don't think this is working. The air in her lungs vanished. What? He looked up at her, his expression pained. I tried, I swear I did, but I can't live like this. Tears burned in her eyes. You're letting him win. I'm not letting him do anything, Chidi snapped. I just can't handle waking up every day, wondering what he's going to send next, wondering if I'll ever be enough for you when he's still hanging over us. Amara's breath hitched. Chidi, please. He shook his head. I love you, Amara, but love isn't enough. I can't do this anymore. Her heart shattered. She stepped back, shaking her head. So that's it. After everything? Chidi exhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping. I'm sorry. She stared at him for a long moment, waiting for him to take it back. He didn't. And just like that, Enkay had won. Amara didn't remember getting home. She didn't remember how long she sat in the darkness of her apartment, staring at the floor, feeling her soul crumble. She had fought so hard to escape Enkay, and in the end, he had dragged her back without even touching her. Then her phone rang. She didn't need to check the caller ID. She already knew. Slowly, she picked it up and placed it against her ear. Hello, my love, Enkay's smooth voice cooed. I told you, didn't I? You belong to me. A tear slipped down her cheek. Her voice was barely a whisper. What do you want? His chuckle sent a shiver down her spine. Simple, come home. Her hands clenched into fists. She didn't want to. But what was left for her here? The man she loved was gone. Her peace was destroyed. She had nowhere else to go. So she did the only thing she could. She packed her bags. And for the second time in her life, Amara walked back into Enkay's arms. Amara stared at the packed bag sitting on her bed, her fingers trembling as she zipped it shut. Her apartment felt empty, hollow, as if it already knew she wasn't coming back. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had built a new life. She had fallen in love. She had been happy. But Enkay had ripped it all away. Chidi was gone. The life she had worked so hard for was gone. And now, she was going back. The thought made her want to vomit, but what choice did she have? She had fought. She had tried. And in the end, she lost. A sharp knock at the door made her jump. She knew who it was before she even opened it. A driver stood outside, dressed in a crisp white shirt. Ekong's driver. "Madam, Olga is waiting for you." Her breath caught in her throat. This was it. She grabbed her bag, stepped outside, and let the driver take her away. Back to him, a king welcoming his queen. Back to the cage. The black SUV pulled into the parking lot of a 5-star hotel, one of the most expensive in Uyo. Of course, Ekong would make a spectacle out of her return. Amara stepped out, her stomach twisting as she walked through the grand entrance. The hotel smelled of money, luxury, and power, the things Ekong loved most. She didn't need to ask where to go, she already knew. Her feet felt like lead as she entered the private suite on the top floor, and there he was, Ekong, standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, dressed in a sleek navy caftan, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He turned slowly, his eyes sweeping over her like he was appraising his property. A slow, satisfied smile curved his lips. "My love," he murmured. "You're home." Amara didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, her body numb. Ekong walked toward her, his scent invading her senses. A mix of expensive cologne, power, and control. "You should have never left," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She flinched. He saw it, and it amused him. His fingers trailed down her cheek, then under her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. "You were always mine," he said softly. "You just forgot." She didn't answer, because what was left to say? She had fought to be free. And now, she was right back where she started. The next few days were a blur of expensive gifts, romantic dinners, and forced affection. Ekong acted as if nothing had happened, as if she had never left him in the first place. He took her shopping, draped her in diamonds and silk, paraded her around town like a trophy. And Amara? She played along. She smiled when he expected it. She held his hand when cameras flashed. She let him kiss her in public, let him whisper false promises of love in her ear. But inside, she was dying. This wasn't love, it was ownership. And now she was trapped all over again. That evening, Ekong took her to an exclusive private club. The music was soft, the lighting dim, the air thick with power and privilege. They sat in a VIP booth, surrounded by his business associates, politicians, and other wealthy men who looked at her like a possession. Ekong kept his arm around her, his fingers stroking her shoulder absent-mindedly. To everyone else, they looked like the perfect couple, but Amara felt like a prisoner on display. She barely spoke, barely ate. Her mind was somewhere else. Until she felt his lips against her ear. "You're not happy," he murmured, amusement lacing his tone. "Why?" She forced a smile. "I'm just tired." Ekong chuckled. "You'll adjust." Adjust. That's what her mother had told her before she married him. That's what everyone had told her. She had adjusted before. Now, she wasn't sure she could do it again. Later that night, back in the hotel suite, Ekong sat on the couch, swirling whiskey in his glass. Amara stood by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering what Chidi was doing at that moment. Was he thinking about her? Or had he already moved on? "You're thinking about him," Ekong said suddenly, his voice calm. Her breath caught. Slowly, she turned to face him. Ekong smiled lazily, but his eyes were sharp. "Your little boyfriend," he continued, sipping his drink. "What was his name again?" "Chidi?" Amara said nothing. Ekong leaned back, watching her. "You still love him, don't you?" Her hands clenched into fists. "He was good to me." Ekong chuckled. "And yet you're here, with me." Amara looked away. She hated him. Hated how he always won. Hated how he had ripped Chidi away from her. How he had destroyed the one good thing she had. "Do you think he's still waiting for you?" Ekong mused. Her chest ached. He wasn't. She knew that. She had seen it in Chidi's eyes the last time they spoke. He was done with her. "Forget about him," Ekong said, standing up. He walked over to her, sliding a hand around her waist. "You're mine," he murmured against her hair, "and you always will be." Tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to fight, wanted to push him away, run, scream, anything. But she was tired. She had nothing left to give, so she just stood there, letting him hold her, letting him win. Again. The next morning, Enkay handed her a key. "What's this?" she asked, her voice hollow. "Our new home," he said, smiling. "Time to stop playing and come back where you belong." Amara stared at the key in her palm. There it was, the final piece of the trap. And this time, she wasn't sure if she would ever escape again. The mansion was as grand as she remembered. Tall glass windows, marble floors, chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Everything was perfect. Everything was designed to impress, but to Amara, it felt like a grave. She sat on the plush couch in the living room, staring blankly at the glass of wine in her hands. Her hands trembled, but she wasn't sure if it was from fear, exhaustion, or the sheer weight of her reality. She was back in the cage she had fought so hard to escape, and this time, she knew there was no way out. Enkay walked in, dressed in a silk robe, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He looked at her the way a king looked at a conquered kingdom. Slowly, he sat beside her, taking the glass from her hands and setting it down. Then he reached out, his fingers stroking her face. "You'll never leave me again," he whispered, his breath warm against her skin. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Enkay caught it with his thumb, smiling. "Tears? Why, my love? You have everything you could ever want. Everything, a beautiful home, money, status, power, everything except freedom." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Tell me," he said softly, "who do you belong to?" Amara closed her eyes. She wanted to fight, but what was left to fight for? Chidi was gone. Her happiness was gone. The world had proven that no matter how far she ran, Enkay would always find her. She had lost. She opened her eyes, looking into his, and for the first time in a long time, she felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. She parted her lips and whispered, "You." Enkay's smile widened. "Good girl." He pressed a kiss against her forehead before standing. "Now go upstairs and change. I'm taking you to dinner tonight. You'll look beautiful as always." She nodded mechanically. He left the room, humming to himself. Amara sat there for a long time, staring at the doorway. She thought about the girl she used to be, the girl who had once dared to dream of freedom, and then slowly she stood up, smoothed down her dress, and walked upstairs, to the room that had once been hers, to the prison she now called home, and as she closed the door behind her, the last bit of hope died.